Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Game of Thrones Night of the Seven Kingdoms Episode 5 video. There were a whole bunch of WTF moments, Easter eggs, references to the books, so we'll break it all down. Everybody grab your swords and lances. We finally arrived at the Trial of Seven, the real Super Bowl. It's a really great day to be Sir Duncan the Tall, and a really, really bad day to be a Targaryen. Because of what's happening on House of the Dragon right now, heading into Season 3, and what's happening with the Targaryens during this part of the timeline in Night of the Seven Kingdoms, most of their days are bad days. We're going to have to wait for that Aegon's Conquest series until most of the Targaryens' days are great days. The actual Trial of Seven, the battle itself, was really cool, and I did love the way that they incorporated the flashbacks in context, with Dunk being knocked out and then coming back into consciousness, driving him back into present day. Obviously, the other real big thing in the episode is Baelor Breakspear, Baelor Targaryen dying. He winds up being the Ned Stark of Season 1, the guy who dies, like the real big character that you think isn't going to die, but then winds up accidentally being killed by Maekar, his brother, because the armor he's wearing is incorrectly sized. It's improper for his head, which is why it didn't protect him from the mace strike. So everybody press F to pay respects to Baelor. He would have made an amazing king, which they do reference in the trailer for next week's episode, but there's a lot to unpack here. So the actual episode title was In the Name of the Mother, which is meant to be a reference to Sir Arlen in the flashbacks calling out the name of the mother when he saves young Dunk from the Gold Cloaks that are trying to kill him. It's part of the oath of knighthood that you give when you are knighted. We heard part of it during episode 4 when Lionel Baratheon was knighting Raymond Fossaway. The actual full passage reads, In the name of the warrior, I charge you to be brave. In the name of the father, I charge you to be just. In the name of the mother, I charge you to defend the young and innocent. In the name of the maid, I charge you to protect all women. In the case of Sir Arlen, he was protecting the young and innocent Dunk. Obviously, in present day, that's a parallel for the other knights, the other champions on Dunk's team, protecting him because he is also innocent in the future. You could also look at it as a reference to Dunk defending Tanzel from Aerion in a previous episode because she is innocent. But the actual opening scene starts with Dunk's team in a configuration of 7. I love the way they framed this too, like they're sitting around a table just like the 7 gods are depicted, with Baelor planning their strategy because he is a big tournament nerd. Like, he basically knows how to win tournaments like this, so he's the right person to give them strategy. He reminds Dunk that Aerion's team does mean to kill him and the rest of them potentially, with a couple exceptions. But at least at the moment here, the whole idea is that Baelor doesn't want to kill Aerion or any of the other people on the other team. He just wants them to survive the trial. So the whole goal here, their whole strategy, is to get Aerion to submit eventually. But if you really want to think about it, Dunk's only real plan is to not die. Like, that's his only actual plan. Baelor, though, does have an actual real plan. When he says he'll take care of the Kingsguard because they're under oath not to harm him, that is correct. They can't kill him or maim him, so it actually is a sound strategy. Lionel's line about Baelor being the favorite son looks like he was just waiting for an excuse to make fun of the Targaryens. Like, he does not look like a fan of the Targaryens. But it also implies that Maekar will fight more viciously because he feels like the son that the family doesn't care about, which actually is kind of true. We saw in previous episodes that he got really tired of hearing people love his brother so much. Like, oh, you're praising my brother again. Great, just another day of this. His entire life has kind of been like that. Like, everybody loves Baelor and doesn't really think that much about him. Even when they came in, they were heralding their arrival at the actual tournament. The actual crier had to remind himself, oh, it's Baelor and you too. You also happen to be here as well.
And his brother, Maekar.
Lionel's line is also meant to foreshadow him accidentally killing Baelor. So if that wasn't clear, this is completely on accident. Maekar did not want to harm Baelor. Again, it's only because Baelor's helmet is Valarr's, his son's, and thus doesn't fit him properly, so it didn't protect him the way that normal armor would. If he was wearing his normal armor, which he did not bring to the tournament because he wasn't planning on competing in the tournament, he would have been totally fine. Maekar did not think about this, he didn't take it into account, so when he struck his head, he wasn't trying to hurt him, but because the helmet did nothing to actually protect him, it took a giant chunk out of the back of his skull. I think the idea is that Maekar was just trying to knock him out, not like permanently damage him or anything like that. There was a great moment with Dunk letting Egg know that they're totally good again, giving him the same jest from earlier this season when he claimed that he'd hunt him down if he robbed him, and also more importantly, that if he survives, remember, if he survives, which he does obviously, he'll let him continue being his squire after this. When the Septon blesses the match, it's because the Trial of Seven is based on the traditions of the Faith of the Seven. The Andals themselves brought the tradition of knighthood to Westeros in the first place. Before the invasion, there were no actual knights in Westeros amongst the First Men, but trial by combat, like the simple version of trial by combat, man versus man, still did exist. Love the way they start the opening salvo, the opening charge here. Aerion skewers Dunk in the stomach because Dunk is not a good jouster. He doesn't really have experience in jousting, then unhorses him with his mace, knocking him out, which they cleverly use to throw us into the flashbacks where he's remembering his childhood. So one of the other cool things too is that Dunk also flashes back remembering his childhood during the trial in the actual book version of this as well too. So even though they have made changes to the original adaptation for the actual show, this is actually pretty close to what it was like during the book. While he's in the middle of the fight, while it's raging around him, he starts remembering his childhood. He flashes back to the Blackfyre Rebellion aftermath around King's Landing, and I believe this is meant to be Redgrass Field. The Battle of Redgrass Field was like the final big battle of the Blackfyre Rebellion. It was fought right next to King's Landing, and it's also the battle where Baelor and Maekar got their nicknames, the Hammer and the Anvil, because they were both heroes of that battle. We actually get a lot of Blackfyre Rebellion references during this episode in all these flashbacks. During this period, they show that Dunk was scavenging the battlefield for anything worth selling, bits of armor, horses, horseshoes, anything, literally at all. You notice the red banner in the background is Lannister, the green banner is Tyrell. Dunk sees the knight that he's scavenging from return to consciousness and tries to suffocate him, taking pity on him because his body is crushed. Like even if he lives, it would be no life because medical technology in Westeros is not that great unless you have somebody like Qyburn who's going to turn you into a walking zombie, basically. Then we meet Rafe, who's actually one of his friends from the books that he grew up with in Flea Bottom, who thinks that they can ransom this highborn person for a lot more money if he does survive. But the irony here is that they're not strong enough to get him out from underneath his horse. Like, they can't move the horse from out on top of him, and they almost rip him the rest of the way in half trying to pull him out. So RIP to this guy. They talk about giving him a little death prayer. They don't know any to actually give him, but then want to take the copper fillings from his teeth and try to sell those too, because they are worth something. As they walk back to King's Landing, I can't quite tell which helmet Rafe is wearing, but the man with the cup sigil carrying the dead person on the horse is taking a highborn person back to their house for burial. It's meant to be a highborn person, which is why you see him on this horse here. Most of the lower-born people, or the people who didn't have any status who died at Redgrass Field, would have just been left there to rot on the battlefield. But if you're like a really high-born person, they obviously would have taken your body back to your family to bury you there. When he mentions the Black Dragon, that's Daemon Blackfyre. He was killed by Brynden Rivers, the Blood Raven, aka the Three-Eyed Raven, and his Raven's Teeth archers during the Battle of Redgrass Field. They also killed Daemon's heir and his oldest son, Aegon. Another Aegon. They made a joke about that in a previous episode. How many Aegons have there been? And Daemon's second son, Aemond, too, but not Aegor Rivers. We'll talk about that in a second, because Rafe actually references the second Blackfyre Rebellion, which hasn't happened yet in the timeline. We'll actually see that during Season 3.
Only for Cedric to come back a year later and near burned on half a flea bottom trying to kill Puddin'.
When she mentions Ferret and Pudding, those are Dunk's other friends in Flea Bottom, and the bit about Pudding accidentally killing Cedric's younger brother and then Cedric coming back for revenge later is meant to be a reference to Aegor Rivers in the Golden Company, the Blackfyre's successors, coming back to Westeros to do the second Blackfyre Rebellion. So she's basically calling out what they're going to be doing during Season 3 of the show. They go back to Flea Bottom. Everybody's still licking their wounds from the Battle of Redgrass Field, like it's relatively recent that it just ended. One of the Gold Cloaks, named Alistair, seemingly tries to extort money from them, then some other randos steal money and Rafe steals the booze bag from him. When she mentions the Queen making fun of her for having terrible booze, that's Miriam Martell, Baelor and Maekar's mother. They sell the bits that they scavenge from the Battle of Redgrass Field for a couple coins. The man also references that many dead the battlefield was so bad that they'll be scavenging it for years to come. Like there's many more things that they could loot from the battlefield there. He also references Daemon Blackfyre again, telling Dunk to get rid of the House Blackfyre emblazoned leather with the sigil on it because they are persona non grata in the realm now. Like nobody wants to have any association with them at all. They reveal he and Rafe are sleeping under the floorboards. That's how poor they are. It feels kind of like a cell. And she's trying to get him to leave King's Landing and sail to Essos. That's what they mean when they say the free cities. That's also where the survivors of the Blackfyre Rebellion in Aegor Rivers fled to form the Golden Company. He starts to become afraid at the idea of leaving his current life here. They reference his mother a couple times too, thinking that she abandoned him but might come back for him or might be dead. I think what you're meant to take away from this, just based on how bad his life is that his mother really did abandon him and is not coming back. We only know a little bit about his mother that George R. Martin has written. He hasn't explained who his father is. Dunk never learns who his father is in the books. But his mother worked at one of the brothels, so you have to imagine that he was just whoever had enough money to actually pay for a night with his mother. They declare their love for each other, although their heart doesn't really seem into it, like, yeah, I kind of love you, I kind of love you too. Like, they don't really mean it that much. But her call to action, go out and make a family for yourself, is meant to follow to what happens to him in present day, basically following Sir Arlen the chance for a better life. Now in present day, he's trying to make that better life for himself as a knight. While they're trying and failing to board a ship to the Free Cities, they're caught by Alistair and the Gold Cloaks trying to get revenge for Rafe robbing him. Notice he's missing his hand. Doesn't it remind you of Jaime Lannister, who wasn't a gold cloak, but he did wear gold armor, gold to gold? The reason why the Kingsguard armor changed from white to gold during the present day of the Game of Thrones series was mostly meant to signify how the Lannisters had taken control of the crown, so it was Lannister gold that had basically perverted the Gold Cloaks. So it was meant to be the idea of the Lannisters perverting the White Cloaks with their gold in the realm during the events of the main show. R.I.P. to Rafe, press F to pay respects to her, then Dunk loses it, bites a big chunk out of him, and this is also meant to parallel his fight with Aerion in present day when it turns into like a knockdown, drag-out bar brawl. We will get to that in a second too, like their actual fight. It was a solid fight by Game of Thrones standards. Just as the Gold Cloaks are about to kill young Dunk, he's saved by a very, very drunk Sir Arlen who calls out the name of the mother, giving the episode its title. He said the name of the thing inside the thing, and Dunk, then blaming himself for Rafe's death, eventually decides to try and find Sir Arlen and join him for the chance of a better future far, far away from Flea Bottom. And we basically get a slow montage over like the next week or so of time of Dunk slowly tailing him, and Sir Arlen probably knew that he was being tailed by Dunk and was just waiting for Dunk to actually approach him until he actually sees that he's about to die.
Get up.
We see his 3 horses, much younger at this point, Chestnut, Sweetfoot, and Thunder, still sad about what happened with Sweetfoot. And at least on this first night, I think you're meant to take this as Dunk thinking about robbing Sir Arlen for a brief second until he decides not to, and then just slowly follows him for a couple more days until Sir Arlen eventually notices him and, admiring the dedication, basically decides to take him on, like, okay, fine. So I think part of the idea here is that Sir Arlen kind of takes pity on him, like, okay, I'll give you a chance, kid. You also notice during each of the different nights, as Dunk is slowly dying while he's following him, you also hear him yelling in Dothraki too. It sounds like Sir Arlen is just remembering old battles that he fought when he was younger. But if it wasn't clear, I do think that Sir Arlen knew this whole time that Dunk was tailing him. Like, it wasn't him just noticing him at the last minute. He knew for a couple days now that Dunk had been tailing him. Love the way they also use his chant too, giving him the water, telling him to get up, kid, to actually throw us back into present day with Duncan coming back to consciousness in the middle of the Trial of 7, and also how that mirrors young Egg yelling at him to get up, get up, get up. Part of the idea here with his fight against Aerion, while you see the rest of the battle raging around them too, love the way they filmed this too, like from an actual filmic perspective, where you just see things going crazy in the background, but mostly the camera is just focused on Duncan and Aerion's battle. For at least this first part of the fight, Aerion is meant to have the heavy advantage because he does have way more training than Dunk has, but Dunk's great advantage is his overwhelming size and strength and the fact that he grew up in Flea Bottom, and it takes a lot of tenacity to survive in Flea Bottom, which is why Aerion loses when it turns into a knockdown, drag-out brawl fight, because Aerion, as a prince of the realm, like highborn person, has no experience in brawls like this. You also notice how many times he skewers Dunk with his sword. Dunk is like a kebab in this episode. Dunk almost slices Aerion's junk off. You hear Maekar yelling in the background, my boy, my boy. Do not worry, Aerion is still able to father children after this, but it looks like he almost has him, like almost slices him right in half. And I love the way you go into Dunk's perspective when the sound drops out and you hear Egg just barely yelling in the background, and it goes quiet as you think that he's going to die for a second until he comes back. It's a little bit like the Get Up Spider-Man moment in that movie. Everybody in my theater, both times I went to see that, were chanting Get Up Spider-Man like this, basically Get Up Dunk kind of moment. Also with the crowd turning to Dunk's side eventually. For most of the fight, they were actually cheering for Aerion until this moment here, they started cheering for Dunk. When they start fighting again for the second time, both he and Aerion are meant to be on the edge of death, so like they're barely coherent, and it turns into that bar brawl, almost killing Aerion with his shield, killing a Targaryen with their own sigil. How ironic. When you actually rewatch this fight, it actually looked like Dunk was going to kill him or finish killing Aerion had he not yielded, and that's the only thing that stays his hand before he brings the shield down on his neck one final time. You also notice while this is happening, in the background, you can see Maekar deliver the mace strike to the back of Baelor's head, his helmet that became the blow that cracked his skull, eventually killing him. You notice when they were filming this scene, they were very careful to include that moment too, like, oh, that's going to be important in a couple seconds. He forces Aerion to submit again more loudly so that they will stop the trial, and Beesbury at this point, before Baelor dies, is the only other confirmed death. So for the most part, the trial itself isn't as bloody as it was in the past. The last time in the realm that there was a trial of 7 was more than 100 years ago when Maegor was challenged by the warrior's sons, and in that instance, everybody except Maegor wound up dying. So usually when a trial of 7 goes down, most of the combatants wind up dying.
Be vigilant. Don't die.
Then I love the way that they actually adapted this particular scene here of Baelor addressing Dunk right after the battle and Dunk pledging his service to him, thinking that he's going to become a knight in Baelor's house after this henceforward, and it's right out of the book, like it's literally page-to-screen adaptation. As was the moment where they take his helmet off, revealing that he is missing a massive, massive portion of the back of his skull, with the mace strike being enough to smash his brain. So R.I.P. Baelor Breakspear, press F to pay respects. He would have made an amazing king. Baelor's death is meant to be the short-term payoff of Daeron's dragon dream that he had about the dead dragon on top of Dunk, who died but Dunk survived. Baelor is the dragon. Now, even though King Daeron II had 4 sons, Baelor is the oldest. Even though he's dead now, he was the crown prince, the crown now passes by law to his son Valarr, whose armor he was just wearing. So at least right now, with his death, Valarr is the heir assumptive. Maekar and his sons like Aerion and Egg, Aemond, even Maester Aemond are still way, way further down on the line of succession. Also Daeron too. Daeron we didn't really talk about during this fight. You actually see a couple shots of him in his armor. This is what it looks like. But there will be hell to pay. There will be a lot of aftermath to talk about in next week's episode 6. Yes, it is a very big deal that the royal heir was killed, but because it was Maekar, he's about as powerful as you could get and be free from repercussions about that. But the problem with that is that the realm doesn't really view it the same way. Legally, Maekar is fine. Like there are no actual bad repercussions to him in that way. But it is a very, very bad omen on the Targaryen family just in general, and Maekar feels like this follows around like a chain around his neck, and the grief follows him in the repercussions for the rest of his life. And the realm now thinks of him as a kinslayer, which is about as bad as you could be viewed in the eyes of the Seven. There are a lot of really WTF crimes that you could commit in the world of Game of Thrones, but kinslaying is actually really, really high on the list. The fact that he killed the next king of Westeros just makes it that much worse in the eyes of the realm. There was actually a cool line of dialogue from Maester Aemond during A Feast for Crows in A Song of Ice and Fire main novels, where a much, much older Maester Aemond at the wall is remembering his father Maekar, thinking that eventually when he was forced to take the crown and become king, it was actually a punishment for killing his older brother during the tournament at Ashford. But at least at this point in the timeline, like I said, Maekar is still very far down in the line of succession, so he's not thinking about being king. Valarr is the heir assumptive now, so the idea is that everybody thinks that he is going to be king once Daeron II dies, and he is an old man, so that isn't that far away. But if it wasn't clear, we don't see him this season, but they did reference him in the first couple of episodes. King Daeron II is still very much alive right now while this is happening, so like he's gonna get a raven real soon. Oh, by the way, your oldest son, he's dead now because of this crazy tournament that just went down. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if you spotted any other Easter eggs or references for the books or anything else that I didn't talk about during the video, just write it below in the comments. My episode 6 finale trailer video will post next, and my full episode 6 finale video will post next Sunday after they release it. So the really big reminder is that next week is the last episode of season 1, and they're in the middle of filming season 2 right now for release next year. So they're trying to release each new season of Night of the Seven Kingdoms on a yearly basis. Hallelujah. Currently, they've only been renewed through season 3, but I believe the idea is they plan to go at least 4 or 5 seasons. We will see beyond that, but I do believe they will go beyond season 3. Everybody click here for my episode 6 video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that, and click here for all my other Night of the Seven Kingdoms episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.